That was fun. Carry on.
I've never heard that before. One of the most earliest frustrations I remember was being shopping with my grandmother. And I'm old enough to remember in grocery stores when they would help people out to the car.
Yeah.
And over the speaker,
Yep.
they would say, "Carry out, please." And I would just be, "Really? I'm right here. Why are you telling me to get out?" Little 5-year-old going,
Smarty.
And your grandmother would roll her eyes.
"Yes, she would," because I got a lot of that sense of humor from her. Okay, what I'd like to talk a little bit about today is gratitude. And what has occurred to me is a way we can build a little bit of a time machine. It's one of my favorite things to do. I don't know about you, but sometimes my mind can get into weird cycles of, oh my gosh, this thing that's happening is awful. This thing that's happening is terrible. This thing that's happening is the worst ever. And of course, it's not. It's your brain playing mind games. I call it a hamster wheel because the hamster's in your head just running circles. And there are many ways to get out of that cycle. But the one thing that has worked for me consistently since I was old enough to pick up a pencil, pretty much since I was that kid getting offended at being told to get out of the grocery store, which I do now, by the way. My husband likes to shop and I hate it. So I just don't go in, so they can't tell me to get out. Is to write, to sit down and, okay, is this actually the worst thing in the history of the world or even my life? Probably not. And it occurred to me that it might be fun to go back and write about something that we thought was the worst thing in the world and probably not something that is actually catastrophic, like, the loss of a loved one, or, if we'd had a worse house fire, things like that. I'm talking more about perhaps, oh, one of the girls is fussing, perhaps a job change that you didn't plan, or uh, needing to get a new vehicle, or in our case, we're going to have to get new cabinets for the kitchen, which sounds positive on one side of it, but man, we're still living out of boxes. It's driving us nuts. And the situation of having to clean up the entire kitchen, I think it is going to turn out to be positive. So I thought it might be fun to write through one of those situations. Gosh, this seemed horrible. This is the situation, but this is how it turned out. So it's something Dana wants to say hi. It's something we can use in the future when one of those situations comes up to remind ourselves, hey, this might be the kind of situation that turns out positive, which can help diffuse some of those negative, stressful feelings when you're in the middle of it. So I thought that might be an interesting exercise. I know it can certainly be helpful, the situation we're in right now, waiting on insurance adjusters and things like that. So it might be a good time right now to do some writing while Nikki's rebooting. Does anyone have any questions before we get started? Does that make sense, what I was going over just now? Sorry, there goes Dana. Sorry, that was a squeaky toy.
You want us to write about something that we thought at the time was traumatic and it turned out not to be.
It can still be something that was traumatic.
Okay.
Certainly having to have, this is top of my mind, of course, the firefighters and all that stuff was certainly traumatic, and we're both still going through that. I mean, I'll find a charred piece of wood somewhere and it's just, oh, that's right. But I think in the future, if I go back in a few months, I'll go, oh, that actually turned out to be a positive. Anybody else? Does that make sense?
No.
Yep.
Okay.
I can't think of anything.
I mean, it could be something like, oh gosh, I dropped a casserole on the way to, oh, hey, it worked. Yay.
Hey,
Yay.
going. Yay, Nicky.
Probably could be something like a divorce, your son's divorce, one traumatic
Possibly. It could be lighter than that, or it could be something like that. Or, gosh, I had a flat tire and I met my best friend. Odd little.
ours getting beat down by the president of career track. Don't like that.
So I was thinking we could try writing for 8 minutes, which may sound long or short depending on your point of view this morning.
Karine is just coming on. Can you repeat the instruction, Carrie?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Hi, Karine. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for asking. Sorry I'm a little bit late. I didn't get the passcode, but probably it was emailed to me and I missed it. I couldn't get in. So thank you.
No worries. We're just
What's Korea's picture?
She
My
doesn't
camera's
show her
messed
picture.
up. Oh,
She's
yeah.
there.
I'm-
You have to
Yeah,
do
I'm here.
this.
I'm a
Well, that's
fan.
not
When there's too many people.
Oh, is she not on there?
Her camera's not working.
Oh,
Mute.
we were talking about gratitude this morning, Karine, or afternoon, about creating a little bit of a time machine in our minds. So when a situation hits us that just seems like in the moment, I can't believe I'm having to deal with this, or this is awful, this is terrible, that may be actually traumatic, or it may be not that big of a deal, to go back and look at a situation that felt like that. Whether it was something like I was just saying, you had a flat tire, but you met one of your best friends. We had that happen in Wales, for example, on a trip. My I'd been driving on the left side of the road for quite a while, and then Jason flew over and joined me, and he got into drive, and bless his heart, it's a great story. I think he should own it. He hit a curb so hard that both tires went flat.
oh, wow.
So we were just stuck, and we had to wait for someone to come and change both tires because we couldn't do anything. One we could have handled, but it ended up being very interesting because the young man who came to change our tires was a Welsh speaker, and he was speaking English to us, but we could not understand each other, and it was fascinating. Just one of those really interesting experiences that we wouldn't have had. And it's a cool story. It's just kind of fun. Wow, you hit the curb hard enough to blow 2 tires. And it was a beautiful day. It was fine. But at the moment when it happened, we're like, oh, great. But it ended up being a fun experience. So probably, I mean, depending on how you feel, might want to steer away from something that was really difficult and hard, the loss of a family member or something like that, just because we're only going to write for 8 minutes. But something we can start putting into practice in the future when those moments hit us. That, okay, let me remind myself that this happened and it turned out to be good. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. So I would say I'm going to set a timer for 8 minutes. And so let's pick an example of something that seemed, for whatever reason, just dreadful in the moment. But in retrospect, this was actually a positive thing. So I'm going to set the timer right now. And we'll write for 8 minutes and then come back. Okay, we are at time. So if you at a good place, go ahead and finish up your last sentence or two. And this is certainly something you can come back to. If you're in a spot where you're like, I really want to write another several thousand words, by all means, definitely save it, keep your notebook, go back to it. And I would be happy to read just to break the ice if anyone, that way anyone else can read, but I'll go ahead just because it can feel kind of awkward. So if everybody's back, I will read mine real quick. It's not even 400 words, so just take a second. This past year, I was training for a half marathon, but ended up with a sore hip and couldn't run that distance. I did run 10 miles, but could not make the half. It seemed like the most upsetting thing in the moment, like I'd wasted all that time and effort, and now the whole day would be awful. It was thanks to this Thanksgiving half marathon, talking about gratitude. As it turned out, I switched to the 5K distance instead, which meant I got to run with a group of runners who had their dogs with them. Just lining up at the start was delightful. No one is more excited to get ready for a run super early in the morning than a dog. It was the biggest party. They were just out there with their people and looking around, and there were other dogs, and they were just thrilled. The race was just so much fun because, like I said, I'd trained up to 10 miles. So running 3.1 just felt wonderful, even with a sore hip. At the end, I got to wait with the rest of the track club to watch the half marathoners come to the finish. I've run a couple half marathons, but it honestly never truly occurred to me what a tremendous accomplishment that is. Just watching people's faces, the joy and the pain and the determination and the relief had me in tears and cheering and laughter. I gained a new understanding of why people train for months to run 13.1 miles, why they put up with weird toenail problems and sun and rain and cold and sweat. It reminded me of what got me to start running in the first place and what kept me going on days I didn't want to bother. And getting to see my husband finish was an absolute gift because he's usually the one getting to watch me finish. And yes, even thinking and writing about this right now is helping motivate me to bring my mental break from running to a close and get back out there, whether I decide to train for a long race or not this year. So yes, what had me frustrated and angry and disappointed in the moment turned out to be a wonderful gift of perspective and understanding, and a chance to see how a setback like that can be a chance to experience unexpected gratitude. Would anyone else like to read theirs? And you don't have to, no pressure at all, but do feel free to share.
Now you can jump in there. They can hear you.
No, it's actually for Chuck to tell. Tell him when you got the flat tire.
You wrote about there. I don't know.
I didn't mind. I just put down to remind you.
Remind me about what?
You and your friends when you were at Lourdes.
Oh,
That was a good story.
yeah, that was a positive story.
So tell my story. It was good.
Yeah, we had arrived in the town
Well,
of
tell them who we is.
I was with two fraternity brothers who were traveling Europe, and we got to Lourdes
Lourdes.
in France, southern France, and we drove around. None of us really spoke any French to any extent. We couldn't find the shrine. We were after about an hour, we tried asking a postman, everything, we couldn't find it. So we're about to leave the town. We had a flat tire. And I got out with my camera to document the changing of tires and removing of all the luggage, etc. And I walked over the sidewalk and I looked over the embankment, and there was a huge shrine. I mean, you're talking about major cathedral with, probably 25,000 people. How could I have missed that? So it was the flat tire that allowed us to find the shrine. And for that, I've been very grateful. And the story goes way beyond that. There was a Greek priest that was watching us, and 25 years later, I met a Greek priest in Greece and got a wonderful message from that. So it was a very positive experience.
What's a good story?
It turned out to be a very positive experience.
I can relate to the overseas flat tire. It's you never know. You're going to find something you don't expect.
Yeah.
Thank you. You're muted, Sally.
Okay. I wrote something down, but Charlie's little story reminded me of something that happened to me when we were outside of Paris. 15 years ago now. It's been a while. My husband and another couple, his best friend and his wife, they took me to London and to Paris for my birthday. we saw some shows in London, and they went to Paris, and we did the Louvre, and we did Notre Dame, and we did some other things, the Cluny Museum and stuff. And we rented a car in Paris, then drove to London, and then came back. And at one point, John and Ernie had to put gas in the car. So they put gas in the car, and we're driving on our way to Paris, and the car was running a little rough. And we thought, well, maybe it was cheap gas. Okay. So we get to it was a toll booth, and it was, I guess maybe about an hour outside of Paris. And we had to stop to pay the toll, and the car stalled, and we couldn't get it started again. Okay. So there we are. Oh, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Well, in the midst of this, there was a drug bust going on over by the curb. And there were a bunch of military and policemen with live ammunition, live rifles and stuff. And they kept telling us to move the car, but they're speaking French. We don't speak French, and we're getting scared. We're in deep water now. And we managed to let them know that we couldn't move that car by ourselves. So they ultimately came up and helped us move the car out of the way. And the man at the booth called a tow truck. So, and here we are, we're thinking, oh God, we're going to get arrested outside of Paris. We don't speak the language. We don't know what's going on. We were really scared. And so we're sitting there waiting and waiting, waiting. And this guy shows up with his tow truck. Well, turns out that he has the same last name as our friend Ernie. His last name was Martinez. Come to find out further, because they were talking, because the guy spoke some English. Come to find out that Ernie and this guy that had the tow truck are related. They're third cousins. So he towed our car to his garage, and he was unable to take us to Paris, but he got a buddy of his to drive us into Paris. And Ernie and this other Martinez stayed in touch. And several years later, that guy and his wife were visiting, and they stayed with Ernie and Linda, and we had sort of a reunion. So all's well that ends well. So that's
a great story.
Yeah.
That's delightful.
Yeah.
Unexpected connection. That's great.
Yeah.
It was really, really wonderful.
That's sometimes it's called serendipity.
Yep.
And there's a story about that, the brothers of Serendip. And that's where the word came from serendipity, where they stumbled on things that they were completely dumbfounded by. But if you ever get a chance to read about the brothers of Serendip, it's quite interesting.
Okay, I have to write that down.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sally.
Okay.
And Bobby, thank you.
Yeah.
How about anybody else want to read? Again, you do not have to, but these stories
I
are
will.
wonderful.
I will. This is a story I'm sure you've all heard before, but it's the most traumatic thing. In August of 2019, I was injured on the job. Unfortunately, everyone I worked for refused to believe that I was hurt. This made me so angry that I decided to retire at the end of the year. Traumatic as this was to me at the time, because I truly loved my job and my clients, I left. 9 months later, I had an episode in a garden, which led to a cardiac cath and a triple bypass. Looking back, if I had continued to work as COVID hit with force, I would probably have died, because I was the only nurse who didn't have kids, and everybody would have been asking me to cover for them. Knowing the me I was then, I would have said yes, and I would have ignored the episode and had a massive heart attack, because that was the vessels that were involved. Quitting saved my life and gave me a second chance to do all the things I never took the time to do for myself, like write a book, take painting classes, swim, and lose weight. So I'm really grateful for that injury. Did me a service.
Perfect example.
Great story.
Thank you.
That's
Anybody else?
definitely a good one. Yeah, I have a
Yeah.
quick one. I raised my kids out of state from their grandparents, uncles, and cousins, so I drove at least 2 holidays per year from 3 different states, ranging a distance of between 800 and 1,800 miles, often through snow, often giving the experience of knowing the extended family's tradition around the holidays. To this day, both sons as adults would have great memories, um, and they would not change that in their past at all. Only one has a deep sense of loyalty to family tradition in that way. The other one has a laid back, more casual approach, but still finds the love for the family and the experience. So even though they both have differences, it's a validation that the determinism in me to get them there, to have the experience, was valid and very useful to who they have become in their adult lives.
You're good.
That makes sense. Yes, I love that.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And just road trips as some of my favorite memories. I mean, I
Yeah.
still love to take a road trip
Yeah.
when I'm driving, but so much because you can read or talk or listen to music. Yeah, those are great memories. That's a good one. Thank you. Anybody else want to feel like reading?
Well, mine was health at all. I'm amazed that you got 800 words. I got 75. Mine was health, and it's the time I had surgery for a bone tumor. The whole tumor was a really stressful situation. I was 225 when it all started, and I was 135 the day I got out of the hospital. But as a result of that, I was off work for a year. I had a full year to kind of like reevaluate everything that was going on. And I met some incredible friends. I had people coming to my support that to this day I have a couple of friends from those times. And it taught me that I was off work for a year. And so the night before I was able to go back to work, I was asked the question, what do you really want to do? And I was told that you don't do anything that you don't absolutely love doing. You should never get in a job that you don't want to work at. And that conversation changed my life around. Uh, I was granted to walk, so the first steps I took were to pack my suitcase because I moved. I started a whole new life. I did exactly what I wanted to do. And I still do that to this day. Like that moment has affected me all my life. And so that was a wonderful thing that came out of a really lousy time.
That's perfect. That's perfect.
Yeah.
There's no word count requirement. Whatever not just helps us grab the memory, but helps us grab the feeling
Yeah.
of, oh, this awful, and wow, this was great.
Yeah.
Because it is like a little time machine. You can go back here and go, look what happened and how it turned out. Something we can draw on.
You mentioned about going back to rework it. I will definitely be going back to rework that story.
Wonderful. Wonderful. I'm always thrilled if someone says, oh, you made me want to write more. Yeah. Always makes me happy, whether it's fiction or essay, whatever it is. That's gratitude from me. So yay. Corrine, did you feel like reading? Or are you comfortable with what you've got? And completely fine if you don't feel like sharing.
Oh, it's Corinne. Yeah, but can I ask for the camera to be turned off too, Kevin, where it'll be private, if that's okay?
I just had this idea that just to kind of give you and myself a tool that we could use in challenging situations coming up, partly because of what we've had going around here. But this discussion and conversation has been, that's the gratitude for me. It's been wonderful. It's been so good to
$15
learn more about everybody, and also to have just a proof of concept kind of that I'm right, that yes, we can make this little time machine, that my weird idea was actually true. So I'm so thankful to have that validation. Thank you all so much. This has been wonderful. And yes, keep
And
this
it
in,
was,
definitely keep this in your toolbox. I know I will.
and it wasn't a weird idea. It was a wonderful idea.
Oh, I mean weird is a positive.
Oh, okay.
That's a compliment in my world.
Oh, okay.
I think maybe unusual is a better way to put it.
I'm
Very
good with
creative.
weird. I'm good with nerd. I'm good with. Yeah. I like all these. I like all these things. Words are my favorite. Well, thank you all.
Thank you. That was awesome.
So what's happening next week?
Nothing on the chart just yet. Anybody volunteer?
Sally B had said she had something
that's
she
right.
could do, so
Let me look at my notes.
I can't remember what she said it was, but she said she could be available.
Yeah.
Not 100% sure. I didn't catch it all.
This is where I take notes and
Yeah, me too.
we'll see if I can find them.
Uh, yeah, I can't find it either. I just remember she said, I have something I could do. Let me know
Yeah.
when you need it, but I can't remember what it was she said she could do. Sorry, my notes are incomplete here.
This is definitely a technology day. Yeah.
It's always a technology day for me.
I write a lot of notes. Next week.
Want to teach anything about me or no? Golly.
No, the only notes I wrote are about the eclipse coming up April 8th. And that was Kari, or Kevin too, wrote notes. Where was Sally? Maybe that was the week before. Or maybe it was mid-conversation instead of at the end. That might be. 1 second. Unless anybody wants to jump in.
I don't know, I can't find it either.
Yeah, well, I'm going to be meeting with Sally this week, so maybe we'll figure it out.
Okay.
Good job doing the upgrade midstream, Nikki. That was impressive.
I just keep pushing buttons.
Seamless. Worked beautifully.
At least you know how to push the buttons.
I guess. I fumble until it works the right way. All right. Yeah, I'm not finding it either.
I don't
It'll
know.
be a surprise.
Okay.
Stay tuned. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful week.
Have a blessed
you.
week.
All
Bye,
right.
folks.
Hey,
Thank
remember
you.
remember
Bye.
the gratitude time machine. It can serve us all well.
That's right.
Yeah. And thank you for teaching us and sharing it with us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Wonderful
Take care,
tool.
everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.